Minister Mtetwa, DM Makwetla. ANC leadership is represented by Membete and Comrade Dakota, leaders of the religious community, family of Ntata Jonas Gwangwa, and relatives alike, and all the fellow mourners. Today we're here to bid farewell to a life well lived. Ntata Jonas was not just a musician, but was an activist in his own right, a jazz maestro, celebrated within the country and throughout the globe. As we come here today to mourn his passing, we also ask that we may celebrate the life that he has lived. Today's proceedings will be run by both myself and the mayor, and we'll take you through the day and truly let's make sure that we celebrate his life and honor his memory. But importantly, never forget the important contribution that he has been able to make within the music industry, but importantly, within the freedoms that we enjoy today. I'll ask the mayor just to join me. We will be taking you and co-chairing, or rather co-program directing today's proceedings. So we'll be here with you today. If you could just give us your ears.
Minister, Deputy Minister, Ilibise Trompo, Kubadela Bala Gwangwa, Kere Sidisekhang, Ntate Semenya, Baruti, the clergy. We are here in Soweto town. I'm a grandson of Soweto town. In fact, I worship here at Christ the King. Together with Ntate Gwangwa and Erlikar Gyarunai. I would like us to rise and be led with the national anthem. I'm not sure if we can all rise for the national anthem, please.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're first going to begin by getting a family tribute. If the member could just please come forward.
I'd like to say good morning to all the distinguished guests, the mayor, all the ministers, the clergy, I would like to say good morning also to you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Gwangwa family, I would like to begin by acknowledging and thanking everyone that is here today, all who are watching from home, and those who have sent their condolences. The family has received countless phone calls, emails, texts, flowers, meals, visits, thoughts, and prayers. These have been both comforting during this difficult time and have been a reminder of the impact that Jonas Mosa Gwangwa has had on so many in our nation. My name is Richard Mokata, and Buti Mosa, as I used to call him, is my cousin. His father, Malume Wilson, is my mother's cousin, and we all lived in Orlando East, and his home at 812 Herindini Street is still standing and has recently been declared a heritage site by the city of Johannesburg. He was more like my older brother. I knew him since I was young, a young boy attending nursery school at St. Mary's next to Orlando Stadium. This was in the late 1950s, and we used to go past his home, my uncle's house, when we walked from school for many years until I finished high school. During that time, he had managed to leave the country, as many of you are aware. I have good memories of Mosa when I was young. The most memorable occasion is when he made it possible for me, my siblings, and my parents to go and watch the musical King Kong at the Vets Grace door. It was such an unforgettable experience, which was further entrenched in my mind by the King Kong record that we always listened to at home. When he left, we kept close contact with his late wife, Mrs. Violet, who later joined him in Botswana. When they returned to South Africa, it seemed as if they had never left the country at all. Our bond was still very tight, and we have since kept close contact as family. Besides our family ties here in Johannesburg, I think it is just as important to mention our strong connection with our roots in Ramaraba in Kalkspruit, Limpopo. This is where our parents came from, and Buti Jonas had made sure that we do not lose ties that we have with our family there. He and his wife have even built their second home there on a plot that was once occupied by my mother's eldest brother. An occasion that will not be forgotten there is when he performed with his band and all the people in the village attended. I can count many occasions where we were together, but with Mosa and Sis Violet, with me, with Mosa and Sis Violet as family. And the most significant occasion was when we traveled together to Accra, Ghana, for my niece's wedding. We really enjoyed ourselves and further bonded. I can mention many instances where my brother has been supportive to me personally, and these are too numerous to mention. For the past few months, I have watched Buti Mosa fighting this very bravely whilst his body was slowly giving in and his health declining. Through all this, he still managed to give a smile when he saw me and other people next to his bed. I can keep talking about our moments together, but like I said at the beginning, that would take lots and lots of time. On the 23rd of January, my dear brother passed away, and he left an empty space in my heart. And I believe in the hearts of all in the family, a void that nobody can fill. The 23rd of January was one of the saddest and most painful days in my life. That day I got a call that my brother had passed on. It is a memory that I cannot erase from my mind or my heart. Although I told him lots of times that I loved him dearly, I would give anything to turn back time and tell him that I loved you one more time, to tell him that without him my life is not complete, and that he is an important and special part of it. People say that time heals all wounds, but today I can tell you that I find it hard to believe. Till today, I feel the same pain in my heart that I felt on Sunday. I know he is closer to me, that there is no more distance or time difference that separates us now. I thank him for those years of love and friendship that he gave me. I thank him for everything that he did for me. I want him to know that I love him with all my heart and that I will always remember him. He will always be my brother and my dear friend. With these few words, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all who cared for Mosa during his illness, and especially to my sister Violet in the other realm. To his children, Papi Spenki, Mpo, Mujalifa, Mark, Malosi, Itu, Neos, Manga, Zoli, all the grandkids and all the great-grandkids. I say thank God that you had such a great father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Please honor his legacy by being the best that you can. I also thank Mani Lebu, the many aunts and uncles, cousins, and family who were there to ensure that they lend a hand. I'd also like to close by saying these words. I thought of you with love today, but that is nothing new. I thought of you yesterday and days before that too. I think of you in silence as I often speak your name. All I have are memories and your picture in a frame. God has you in his keeping. I have you in my heart. Your life was a blessing, your memory a treasure. You are loved beyond words and missed beyond measure. Farewell, my brother. Greet the Lord for me. Being your brother has been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Putket. God, the master music. Music and jazz are interrupted. The disapproving, piercing ring of death has sadly overcome the music and melody of life and jazz as we know it. Who else can pay a musical tribute to a friend of a long time, a fellow musician, a legend in music, than Tate Keifas Kapisimenya? Please come on stage to pay tribute to Tate.
Dumelang gahaithu Modimo eratang sanibonani bantu bakithi molweni mawethu msheni. Good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Program Director and Ms. Program Director. Program Director, Your Excellency Mayor Makubu. Program Director, Mayor Mbadi Lope. Minister of Arts and Culture and Sports, Natum Tetra. All ministers and members of Parliament who are present. The Honorable Premier Tate Makura. All protocol observed. I have to pay tribute to a very dear friend, and it's a life that one cannot relate or narrate in 2 minutes. Actually, we need a whole book to do so. But I've kind of put something together, truncated it, so at least to give you an idea of who he was and what he meant to us. For me, is indeed a spiritually complicated day for me today. Not only me, but my family as well. And by family, I mean my wife, Letta. For those who don't know, she comes from Orlando East as well. She was neighbors with Jonas Gwangwa. You know, I never dreamed that one day I would be standing and speaking in front of a congregation speaking about Gwangwa the way I'm going to speak about him now. 2 years back, unfortunately, I was also one among many mourners who came to Hugh Masekela's funeral to bid him farewell. Before that, Jonas, Hugh Masekela, and myself sang the song Hush at Miriam Makeba's funeral. Another year, I was at Aus Dorothy's funeral. Another one is Tandi Bambani, Tandi class. And I keep watching all these people that I grew up with in this business as each and every one of them departs. That's why I say today is a spiritually complicated day for me, because in my own mind I ask the question, why? Why had they left this world so soon when there is still so much for us to do here in this beloved country of ours? I don't know where the answer will be coming from, but it is truly sad that all these giants of our music and arts are passing away one at a time. The first time I met Gwangwa, I was a teenager. I was 16 years old, and he was 17 years and 11 months older. Hugh was 16 years old, like myself. I met them at a concert and dance performance in Benoni at the Davy Social Center. Both of them, Hugh and Jonas, were members of the Huddleston Jazz Band, and I was there with my group, the Cotton Jama Kids. From that time on, when we performed together on one stage, we got to know each other. And from that time on, we frequently met at many other shows together, and we got to know each other very well. I don't know if many people know that before Gwangwa went to the States, or before he became the musician that he finally became, around 1957, he, Hugh Masekela, Dola Brandt, Makaya Njoko, and Johnny Getz formed a band named the Jazz Epistles. The leader of the band was Bragibi Moeketsi, Brakipi was an experienced alto sax player who had played with many big bands in South Africa and was experienced enough to be their teacher in playing jazz. He taught them many things that as youngsters they didn't know. In 1959, the Union of Southern African Artists, with its headquarters in Donkey House on Elof Street, launched the famous musical King Kong. The cast was made up of South Africa's cream of the crop musicians, singers and dancers from the townships. Dambuza Mdlele played the leading role as King Kong. Miriam Makeba was the leading lady. All of us youngsters, who were 16, 17 and so on, were in the cast and we were dancers and singers. Jonas and Hugh, young as they were now around 17, 18, played in the band alongside the older musicians who were much more experienced than they were. But they were in there, they hung in there, and they did a good job. In 1961, the Union of Southern African Artists, which had produced King Kong, now sent us. When I say us, I mean I was also a member of the cast, but sent the cast of King Kong to London to perform there. Jonas was there as well, but was only there for 2 months because he left for the US after he'd been there for that little while. He left for the US to go study at the Manhattan School of Music, where Hugh Masekela had already been. Hugh had left in 1961 on a scholarship that was arranged by Miriam Makeba. And in 1964, I too went to the States with the musical Sponono, which was produced again by the Union of Southern African Artists. Many people know the place as Donkey House, but that was the headquarters. It was not Donkey House, it was the Union of Southern African Artists. And the union was put together by people like Boku Denbo, Makei Davashe, Bigun Mkhwedi, and many others that many of the people gathered in here wouldn't know their names or know their faces. But these people were very special. Without them, there wouldn't be a Miriam Makeba, there wouldn't be a Ledambulu, a Jonas Gwangwa, Jonas Mosa Gwangwa, Semenya. I can go on and on. And they were really the people who made us who we are today. They were the inspiration, and they protected us from the ravages of apartheid state. They formed the Union of Southern African Artists, and they took care of us. And that's why Jonas went to the States, and it was because of the Union. Hugh went to the States, Miriam also, because of the Union. So, anyway, once we were in the US together, like I said, I left in '64, and I joined them there. After Sponono folded, I stayed behind because Jonas and Hugh said, why don't you stay here and study music as well? Because we know that you've always wanted to study. So this is your chance now. I stayed. It was difficult to stay in the States at that time because I'd left family behind. But because they were there, both of them, Miriam was there, and many other activists were there from home, I didn't think that it was wrong for me to join them. And I really joined them and became a part of the exile family. And so once we were there, we started working together on many projects which culminated in us three forming our group, the Union of Southern African of the Union of South Africa. And if you know anything about the Union of South Africa, the rest is history. Before I conclude, I just want to say that Jonas Mosa was my dear friend and a colleague in music. If I were to say that, it would be a gross understatement, because to me, Jonas Gwangwa was much more than just a friend and colleague. He was family. He was a brother and a comrade in arms. We were bound together not only by our love for music, but also by a common goal of using our musical talents as a weapon to free our people from the shackles of colonialism and apartheid oppression. All five of us, Sister Miriam Makeba, Yuma Sigela, Jonas Gwangwa, Leta, and myself, collectively made a conscious decision to become the cultural wing of our people's liberation movements that were waging the liberation struggle for freedom, justice, and self-determination. And by joining the ANC's Amandla Cultural Ensemble and eventually becoming its musical director and artistic leader for many years, Gwangwa truly earned his credentials as a dedicated, politically conscious musician and revolutionary. As a trombonist, singer, and composer, Gwangwa had his own special sound and style. His music spoke volumes and still speaks volumes. The words he sang in his songs, such as Batuli, which you just heard, and the hymn that he sang, and others, all of those songs still bear witness to the caliber of musician he was. The least known about Jonas Gwangwa was his incredible sense of humor. If you knew him like I know him, you would understand. You would understand. I'm laughing because of some of the stuff that he used to say. He was very funny, and he used to make up all kinds of hilarious stories. He used to jokingly say to us, you know, Mura, at the age we are now at, which we were now in our 80s, late 70s, like 77, 78. He said, at the age we are at now, we are patiently waiting in the departure lounge of the airport to the other side. And the first time he said this, we were taken aback. So what? He said, we are waiting at the departure lounge of the airport to the other side. One day, the bell through the airport sound speakers would ring, ding dong, ding dong, and the announcer's voice would come in and say, attention, attention, ladies and gentlemen, flight number such and such to the next world is ready to board. And please, those people who are booked on this flight should now get ready to make their way to the boarding gate. And the announcer would announce the gate number such and such. And then he says, and he would laugh heartily and say, and that's us, Mura. When that day comes, that bell will ring. It's very, I'm laughing because how correct he was. The bell he spoke about so many times, it did ring for him, and he did go to the polling gate. And I'm sure outside, his wife was waiting to welcome him on the other side. Oh, to Ntate Gwangwa's family, Spanky, Mujalifa, and all of you. Kiri Humutsaha. Lifu, Alifa Ilea, Yazim. Impa Aranda Madamore Dragahana. Everybody Aroma, the announcer at the airport already said that bell, ding dong, ding dong. All who are booked on this flight should now carry on to the gate. Flight number so. And that flight is waiting for us. One day we will have to answer. Thank you.
Thank you for those warm tributes from the family, Dade Mokhate, and also a colleague who has lived his life with him over the years, that's Semenya. Your tributes speak of a man who lived a great life, a giant in his own right. You paint a very colorful picture of a man who was not just a musician, celebrated throughout, but was also an activist, who used his art form to raise our national consciousness and also to raise the plight of what was going on in this country, so that he too may be part of those who liberate us, so we enjoy the freedoms that we do today. We had indicated earlier that he was not just a musician, but was an activist. On behalf of the military veterans, I'd like to call forward Ntate, our dear Minister, Deputy Minister, Thabang Mokwetla, who's going to speak and give us a narration of the other life that he lived as an activist.
Our program co-directors, thank you very much for the opportunity. Allow me to acknowledge the bereaved children of Comrade Jonas Gwangwa and his wife and the extended Gwangwa family. To acknowledge also the Honorable Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Minister Natim Teto. To acknowledge the former National Chairperson of the ANC and Speaker of Parliament, Ms. Valegambete. To acknowledge the Speaker who was here before me, South Africa's celebrated icon, composer, musician, and lifetime friend of Comrade Jonas Gwangwa, Mr. Caiphas Brakati Semenya. Our spiritual leaders at this funeral, all privileged dignitaries present here today to witness the final farewell to Ntate Mosa Jonas Gwangwa, fellow mourners. The celebrated African writer and cultural worker Chinua Achebe says, and I quote, "From the very beginning, it seems to me stories have indeed been meant to be enjoyed, to appeal to that part of us which enjoys good form and shape and good sound. Still, I think that behind it all, is a desire to make our experience in the world better, to make our passage through life easier. Once you talk about making things better, you are talking about politics. He then says, and I quote, "I believe that it is impossible to write anything in Africa without some kind of commitment, some kind of message, some kind of protest. In my definition, I'm a protest writer with restraint," unquote. This perspective of Chinua Achebe about his own life, I believe it is true of the legacy of many African renowned artists, such as Jonas Gwangwa and their artistic exploits. Program co-directors, it is a singular honor and a privilege to me to have been asked to join our distinguished speakers at this funeral, who have been asked to deliver the final farewell message on behalf of the vast humanity which Comrade Jonas Gwangwa journeyed with in his illustrious life, including the community I have been asked to represent. Bra JG, as he was popularly known among the many people around him, was a people's hero. As a person, he seemed to prefer saying less when you encountered him for the first time, until he opened his mouth, always somewhat reluctantly. But his humor, as Brakaifa Semenya has just said, could leave you floored, while he continued giggling innocently with a naughty smile over what he had said. He was a real cold assassin when delivering his hilarious anecdotes, which were always written not for public consumption, for your ears only. Like his companions, Hugh Masekela and Brakaifa Semenya, Comrade JG was an agent of the spirituality of our people. His love for freedom was genuine and deep. Sometime in the year 1980, the rumor mill in MP camps in Angola went into overdrive, intimating that the celebrated jazz musician Jonas Gwangwa was in Luanda because he is also a member of the ANC. It was a story which was initially hard to believe. For over 2 decades after her independence in 1975, Angola remained a war zone, as we all know. Everyone without exception who went to Angola or was based in Angola within the ANC had to carry a gun to know how to use it, and at least for his own protection. It was an immense inspiration to many in the camps for Gwangwa to have forgone life in the glamorous cities of the United States and became part of the trials and tribulations of the lives of those who were involved in the prosecution of the armed struggle. Later on, an update of this rumor followed, suggesting that Jonas Gwangwa was now training and honing the Amandla Cultural Ensemble of the ANC into a professional musical stage show. This was exciting, firstly, because of the huge anticipation of what Amandla was destined to be, but also for the enhanced profile our struggle and our organization was going to acquire both at home and abroad. Those days, we needed friends and we valued friends. In this mission, Gwangwa's passion and professionalism was pleasantly matched by the discipline and dedication of the young MK soldiers who were assembled for this project from the camps. He caused their intense rehearsals to run from 6 to 6, that is 6 in the evening until 6 o'clock in the morning. As fate would have it, it was in the middle of those preparations that he met the dreadful car accident that left him badly wounded and some of his comrades dead. Everyone still talks about how after this accident, he still insisted on coming to rehearsals on a stretcher with some of his limbs immobilized in the plaster of Paris. As a result, he missed the first tour of Amandla to the Norwegian countries of Sweden, the Netherlands, Norway, and Denmark in 1980. However, when he returned from his treatment, he led the group on tours to African states in 1981, to Eastern Europe in 1982, and to Britain, France, and Japan, and Brazil in 1984. In his endeavor to professionalize Amanda Cultural Ensemble, Jonas Gwangwa had recruited another colorful trumpet player and militant cultural worker from his hometown, Orlando East, the late Dennis Mpale. Amanda Group became a powerful weapon in the arsenal of the ANC in the drive to educate the world about our struggle and to win friends across the globe to our cause. Thanks to the immeasurable work accomplished by Comrade Jonas Gwangwa, program directors are pleased that the next speaker on the program I noted is a person who personally worked with these two icons and together with Dr. Walisi Rote, led the ANC machinery which transformed Gaborone into the mecca of South Africa's revolutionary cultural movement. These renowned cultural workers to whom Pra-JG belonged demonstrated that culture could become an effective weapon of struggle. It also for this reason that the apartheid military plunged into Botswana on a killing spree of civilian members of the public on the 14th of June 1985. Jonas Gwangwa was a true people's celebrity. In his lifelong national service to our country, he remained a companion of many mere mortals because he was comfortable among the less fortunate and those who enjoy recognition equally. His collaboration with the military community did not end with the struggle against apartheid. He continued to be a friend of the People's Democratic Defense Establishment, the South African National Defense Force, after 1994, because of his understanding that the military will always be populated by many young people who need exposure to a variety of opportunities. He collaborated with the South African National Defense Force in several initiatives to impart skills and experience in the field of music. In 2014, he performed with the South African Air Force Music Band at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz in Sandton. In 2018, he performed with the South African National Defense Force Mass Band at the Air Force Day in Kimberley. In the year 2000, the then President of the Republic, Honorable Thabo Mbeki, commissioned Jonas Gwangwa to compose the song for the occasion of the unveiling of our new national coat of arms, which he rendered with the music band of the South African National Defense Force. Before Comrade Jonas Gwangwa's demise, Captain Ndlovu from the South African Air Force was writing music with Jonas Gwangwa with the aim of producing a live DVD recording as a tribute to his legacy. Musa Jonas Gwangwa is no more in our midst of the living, but his legacy and spirit will live in our communities and our hearts forever. He delivered freedom and brought joy to our people. We in the military community will miss his companionship, We mourn with South Africa this loss. Mokgapa o mogolo o wele, baswana ba rialo ditaga re lla botsoro. May the spirit of the Prince of Hamashashani live on, and may his soul repose in eternal peace. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. The hymn Yeshamoya that was sang, it was played earlier on, it's one of our favorites. Reminds us that Jonas Gwangwa would actually link hymns to freedom songs, because as youngsters used to sing that one as a freedom song, adapted from a hymn through the work of Mtate Gwangwa. The Czech writer Milan Kundera reminds us in his book, Laughter and Forgetting, that the struggle of men against power is a struggle of memory against forgetting. In keeping the sound of South Africa, particularly the oppressed majority, that Jonas Gwangwa was at the cold face of reminding those in power that we'll never forget who we are, and we'll never forget how to be free, no matter how long it will take. Thank you for the tribute, Deputy Minister. The next speaker will join us via Zoom. We know we are living in difficult times. Ordinarily, would be in a very, very big marquee with a band and that take us Zipping Komo, Mama Matswal and others celebrating this musical icon. Let me introduce, as we acknowledge the presence of the member of the National Executive Committee, Ntate Dakota Lefete, who's just joined us. Let me introduce the former chairperson of the African National Congress, the former speaker, former deputy president, Mep Walekambete, pay tribute to this musical giant, Membete.
Thank you, joint program directors. I greet the family of the Gwangwa and the university, children and relatives who are with us, the arts and culture fraternity globally, and the family of the ANC and Alliance community, as well as South Africa at large, as we are all watching and are linked to this moment of grief. We gather to pay our respect, to celebrate and bury a great artist and musician of the people, Rajeji. We have come to give an appropriate set of invitations to say farewell to a jewel, to a national treasure, one of royal blood who chose to go in order to carry the trombone as a weapon of choice, a weapon that oozed divine. He came from a long line of decades-old trends in the struggle for liberation, whose voices, pianos, trumpets and drums, dramas and movies called our people out from fear and from slumber, from numbness and defeat, to regain their pride, courage, and their smiles. The founders showed the way. Mesha of Makere, men of Tela Dube, we to woo resources for adding to our people's arsenal to fight for our freedom. I came across Dr. Jonas Gwangwa and other South African exiles in Gaborone, Botswana in 1983. The Meru Art Ensemble was a cultural vehicle that mobilized exiles, locals, and expatriates from the international world. We were a well-organized ANC community in all the structures determined by the relevant pillars of struggle at that stage of our revolution. Given the proximity of Botswana to South Africa, there was a lot of underground work and interaction with people coming in and out of South Africa. So for instance, you will be an ANC branch member, but at the same time a member of the Women's League or Women's Section at that point, the Women's Section branch, and a member of the unit of the Meru Art Ensemble or two, which you would have been a member of, and these units would have tentacles into South Africa in terms of the work they were doing, because we were very much in touch with our people. From time to time, we organized events and festivals that attracted large numbers of South Africans into Gaborone. Many young South Africans would end up going for military training in circumstances like that. Comrade Jonas Gwangwa and I were members of the main unit, music unit, of which his band Shakawe was the most active. It was the most active part of that particular unit. Comrade Steve Dyer, Dennis Mpale, Tony Sidras were also members of Shakawe. One of the more well-known actresses in South Africa today, Ms. Connie Ferguson of the soapie The Queen, was with us in Meru. In each of the main units, serious discussions were held and lectures were given to members of those units by the more educated members. For example, in the writers' unit, they would be writing workshops to which comrades' own poems or short stories were brought and were used as illustrations, and the collective would be held in how to improve their own individual writing skills. To this day, in Botswana, Jonas Gwangwa's name is revered as the founder of a jazz audience in that country. Shakawe, Gwangwa's band, and Braju's Kalahari were the most popular groups in that country. In that milieu, a lot of mobilization, political mobilization happened. Locals and expatriate citizens got persuaded, and they in turn hosted and supported a lot of our activities there in Gaborone at the time, in their homes or other spaces that they had access to. During Red Alert, and Red Alert will be when our security structure would come and let us know that the agents of the apartheid South Africa were in town and anything should be expected, and it was not advisable to stay or sleep in our homes. And so you then have to scramble to find somewhere to sleep, somewhere to take your children, and so on. So during those alerts, we often needed places to sleep. And Bokani Daya's mom, who was a university student at the time and was highly pregnant with Bokani, she let me spend 2 nights in her room during that time. So this is just to practically illustrate the kind of life that the exiles at that time were living. Botswana's exile community and its proximity to home, and I say home in capital letters, was in certain respects the dream community. And I hope in a future national democratic society, some of the elements of how that community would obtain. I say this in respect the ability for individuals in a community to be afforded space and good company wherein everyone was supported by the collective to develop in the areas of choice in the arts. That way, people gave their best. In that environment, we lived with Gwangwa and his wife and their family. We all brought our children up within that environment. Gwangwa often went away for long stretches of time to pursue the orders he had received from President Oliver Tambo in the camps in Angola, which Comrade Tabane talked about, where he had to nurture and develop young talent and develop the Amanda cultural ensemble. This became a very effective leader international mobilization instrument, crisscrossing the globe with the message for the people of the world to isolate apartheid South Africa in support of our struggle. This went a long way in making more in the international community to finally get it. Program directors, the last 2 years were like a nightmare. Brady lying in bed, unable to play his trombone. I think his wife also should not have left when she did, because I believe she deserved an award for her remarkable role in nursing him through this past period. No wonder he couldn't stay long after she succumbed to COVID. Today we lay him to rest. We will continue to study the book of his life, to pursue his main dreams that were not yet fulfilled. Especially on how best, as a democratic state, we should advance the lot of artists and cultural workers to fulfill the dream of President John and the dream of President O.R. Tambo. Sidihamba kahle kahle. Amakahle mkhona amandla.
Thank you, Mambalega. John Donne reminds us in his famous sonnet that death be not proud. He says to us that whilst death comes into our lives like a thief, stealing from us those that we love dearly, those that we believe has so much more to contribute, and those whose physical presence will forever be missed. He says to us that death should not be proud, because whilst it's able to steal those we love from the physical reality that we live in, what it's unable to do is to make us forget them as they live on. They live on in the work that they've done. They live on in the memories we shared with them. And so we are able to constantly make sure that as we speak about them, we give life to their memory. And that is one thing that death cannot steal. And so death should never be proud. In the process and in helping us to constantly remember Jonas Gwangwa and his contributions in our lives and those of society alike, I'd like to call forward to come and read the obituary, Mampo Gwangwa Mumala.
Good morning, my relatives, my family, and the dignitaries, the clergy, all protocol observed. This account of Papa's life first appeared in the Conversation on the 23rd of 121 and is republished under Creative Commons license. And it was written by Gwen and so. Music is not a zero-sum game with only one best. But if you seek to name one musician whose life embodies the South African people's struggle for a national culture, it must be a trombonist, composer, cultural activist, Jonas Mosa Gwangwa, a son of the late Wilson and Sophie Gwangwa, who was born on the 19th October 1937 in Orlando East, Johannesburg, and died on the 23rd January 2021 in Johannesburg, aged 83. Through 65 years on stage, Papa's playing contributed to every genre of South African jazz. Overseas, he was hailed as player, producer, and composer. Yet, he chose to step away from mainstream success for 10 years, leading the Amandla Cultural Ensemble of the African National Congress, to win hearts of the anti-apartheid struggle everywhere and present a vision of what post-apartheid national culture could be. He battled painful injury. Accident shattered the same femur 3 times, was hunted for his life by the regime's forces, and experienced both the heydays of South African liberation culture and far more ambivalent times since. Throughout, he cherished a half a century plus love affair with his wife, our mother, Violet, and brought his family, scattered across half the globe. Home intact to a free South Africa, Violet's death only a few short weeks before his had left him and the rest of the family devastated. Papa started his career in the 1950s in the Father Huddleston Band at St. Peter's College in Johannesburg. When instruments were allocated, he wanted a clarinet, but he didn't know what it was called, and instead mattered trombone. When a huge piece of brass was brought to him, he looked at it, amazed, but too shy to refuse it. There was music in the family. Lessons at school and from American jazzmen on the bioscope screen at the Oden Cinema in Soweto. From Dizzy Gillespie, the schoolboy, Gwangwa borrowed his lifetime trademark, a jaunty black beret. He became, in his own words, the little Bipupa. Politics shaped Gwangwa too. The 1954 Bantu Education Act ended Father Huddleston St. Peter's, but not before the band had played at the adoption of the Freedom Charter in Kliptown. He said, everybody shared a perspective. You didn't even classify it as being political. Nobody separated the music from the politics. Because trombone was a scarce sound in African jazz bands, Gwangwa's tricky chops caught the ears of the elite jazz dazzlers. His vision expanded with the Jazz Epistles, whose Jazz Epistles verse 1 became the first modern jazz album from a black South African band. That was the first of several firsts. Gwangwa was co-copyist for the first all-black South African stage musical, King Kong, traveling with the show to London, starting a lifelong love affair with a stage musical format, words, action, and music. And in his words, he says, I became fascinated, that is, when interviewing Baba, I became fascinated with just how to put all these pieces together. Then London contacts helped Gwangwa secure a place at the Manhattan School of Music in New York. There, sharing a flat with Hugh Masekela, his mere allowance went as often on gig tickets as food, as he imbibed mainstream classics and the new free jazz. Equally active in politics, he helped organize South African students in America and served as the first eye on the text drafted by old school friends, poet Keurapetso Khositsile of Miriam Makeba's 1963 anti-apartheid address to the UN. He worked with Makeba and Harry Belafonte, most famously as arranger, adapter, and conductor for the 1965 Grammy-winning Best Folk Album, An Evening with Harry Belafonte and Miriam Makeba, another first. Then came residencies, film scores, multiple recordings across genres, musical directions and tours with the Union of South Africa and with Hap Alpert, when the trombonist won 7 curtain calls for a barnstorming solo on his own Foreign Natives, despite its painful interruption midstream by the reckless driver who first crushed his leg. Gwangwa's American jazz star was rising, but he had loyalties bigger than the stage. And this is a liberation movement. In 1980, Gwangwa answered the call from the ANC President O.R. Tambo to score the military camp of Angola for young talent to establish the campaigning Amandla Cultural Ensemble. The call was too politically important to ignore, and the opportunity to create an entire stage show excited Gwangwa so much that sometimes couldn't sleep. He spent most of the next decade between Amandla rehearsing in Angola and touring the world, and Botswana with his family and contributing to the local cultural scene with the Midu Arts Ensemble. In both settings, he was an innovator. Botswana musicians say he helped build their professionalism and shifted their focus towards indigenous inspiration. In Amandla, he consciously revisioned traditions, casting female performers in previously all male traditional dance roles. Why not? This is a liberation movement. Some cynical analysts suggest Amandla's winning musical arrangement and dramatic stage interludes simply prettied up struggle culture for overseas audiences. They missed the point. Gwangwa's love for the struggle was genuine and deep, never cosmetic, and he couldn't have written an unattractive tune if he tried. Gwangwa believed that political theater deserved exactly the same high aesthetic standards as any other stage performance. And according to the memories of other Amandla performers, he enforced these relentlessly at rehearsals. Audiences everywhere responded to that combination of passion and professionalism. Amandla's impact put the Gwangwa family home on the SADF hit list for the 1985 raid in Botswana. It was raised. Fortunately, the occupants were elsewhere, and the regime's hunt did not cease. Routes were pulled up again for London, then America. During that uneasy, unsettled time, Gwangwa scored another first, an Oscar nomination, and more for his Cry Freedom film score, co-composed with George Benson. For the People, finally home again in 1991. Some recognition arrived. Orders of Ikamanga for him and Amandla, commissions for various official and Pan-African corps, honorary degrees, and more. Yet, he still constantly struggled to earn from tours, shows, and recordings, encountered record label problems over material deemed political, and state composer was not who he wanted to be. Although he was committed to the new South Africa and happy to contribute, he really wanted to be on the ground with the guys. He told me in 2019 from his sickbed, doing something important, he was saddened by the globalized, commoditized, official perspective on the arts, by the sidelining of everything Amandla had tried to build. His music has always explicitly been his weapon, and we're still within an era of struggle. In June 2019, Gwangwa was struck by a serious illness that left him bedridden. He struggled valiantly towards recovery, but was never bitter. Interviewing him for his forthcoming biography, which this obituary is part of that autobiography, when Gwen Ansel asked him what he was proud of, and he said, Amandla, because it involved all the things in music that excited me the most and gave me the opportunity to bring them together. For the most important reason possible, it was for the people. Hamba kahle Mkhonto. Papa will always be remembered and fondly missed by his family of 7, 18 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren, his sister-in-law, nephew, and nieces. Bolisiwe atumelana lithobaleke ngemkhujo mrunga mrwana wasomabhulu wakosi wakagwangwa.
Jalolocha bagethu ra le dumedisha batho beshu lwa jamela empelegenu kulisiba maraba
lwa jameke empelegenu kukhumbeni lisija Moses Gwangwa
Tukumaraba kusuka ngendlini ebukhosi bamandebele bakamaraba eKalkspruit.
Ke Maraba go tloga Kalspruit le faseng la Limpopo Kalspruit.
Lapha emijini engonyama le iwelele.
Gona mo go ileng yotunyeng go yona ko ngwenya mejuli e wileng ye.
Esibangeni semushate waseKalkspruit kamaraba
Bakeng sa mošate wa Kalspruit ga Maraba,
bakagwangwa barona bakosi
bana ba ga Gwangwa, bana ba kosi,
nabogwangwa boke.
le bo Gwangwa ka moka,
Setšhaba se seKalkspruit kamaraba
setšhaba sa ga Kalspruit ga Maraba,
Mandebele oke kusuka la kufika eZimbabwe
Matebele ka moka go tloga mo go fitlha Zimbabwe
neLimpopo ke bophara.
le Limpopo ka bophara,
Dialelo tšhaba yethu.
sa le lotšha ke moka. Ra le dumiša ka moka.
Ba re laba boke la batho ba balele
Batho ka moka ba ba badilweng,
ba thomele molaetsa gore a moya wa Gwangwa o thobane ke go thola.
ba rometše molaetša gore a moya wa Gwangwa a robale ka kgotso.
Ba re ba ka Gwangwa
Batho ba ga Gwangwa,
bona Jonas murwana wa kosi.
yena Jonas Gwangwa o ke ngwana wa kosi.
Papa ke kusomabhunu Wilson
Ba
Gwangwa.
gagwe ke Somabonu Wilson Gwangwa.
Mkhulu kosi
Ragolo kosi
o teke gugu nna tlonke.
o tšere koko nna jonge.
Ba beletha Wilson Somabhunu a nendwa.
Ba belega ko Somabongo,
Somabhunu.
Somabonu.
Yaba goyo mntwana a nendwa. Ninakhe gugu wakhe lo nna tlonke a hlongophara.
Ya ba yena ngwana le tse o fitlhelela koko nna jonge a tlhokofala.
Mkhulu kosi teka gugu nna khanyago.
Ragolo kosi a ja koko ngwana ganya.
Ku teka gugu nna khanyago na be o tobela thabo khadi Monica.
Go tloga mo na Matlabele Thabo Kgadi Monica.
Songwane William
Rangwane William
na khadi Josephine stekwa ka Bugwatlo.
le Kgadi Josephine ba bang tšea ga Mokgatlo.
Giyo michu ya lendoda le sihlangane ngayo.
Ke yena mongwe o re tlhakaneng ka yena.
Nje nna Ntokumaraba
Jwale nna ke le Maraba,
emushato wa kamaraba.
ka mošate wa Maraba,
Ku hlobana kwethu nalaba bakagwangwa.
go tswalana le ba ga Gwangwa.
Nto leyi suka kati na ka 17th century le kubo maraba sibala basabelethwa.
Ke ntho e tlogang gola ka bo 17th century le bo Maraba Sekwala ba sa belega.
Bogwangwa laba bakhonyana ngale kamaraba.
Bo Gwangwa ke bakgonyane ga Maraba.
Bo maraba laba siyatekelana thina le bari bakagwangwa.
Bo Maraba le ba ga Gwangwa ba nyalelana.
Ka Monday
Ka Monday,
Gwangwa u vuka yekumudzala.
Gwangwa o tsoga e le motswala.
Ka Lebombili
Ka Labobedi,
u vuka yekumalume.
o tsoga e le malome.
Ka Lebothathu
Ka Laboraro,
nna Ntokumalumakhe.
nna ke malome a gagwe.
Ka Lebone
Ka Labone,
Ntokusongwanakhe.
ke songwanake ke Sedebele, yes. Ke rangwana gae.
Ka Lebohlano
Ka le ka Friday,
Gwangwa khaya mushato uri jakamkhulu.
Gwangwa ga ya mošate gore ke a ga Ragolo.
Ke Mokibelo
Ka Saturday,
maraba lo khaya ka Gwangwa uri jakamkhulu.
Maraba ga ya ka gore ke a ga Ragolo aka.
Ka Sontaga setseng tafoleng sebarwana be morusiana.
Ka Sontaga re dutse around the table ra ja.
Setla setutu nenyama.
Re ja bogobe le nama.
Nthanda go le bonisa
Re nyaka go le bontšha
gore Gwangwa lo wa kethu.
gore Gwangwa o kwa ka gae.
Ebile ka phandle go jika
Ka ntle go jika-jika.
nka tlhetse pamba trene. A swa ka mashashane mo.
Gwangwa a swa ga mašašana.
Insilinge kakhulu.
Ee, kwatiša kudu.
Lokho umkhosi uhlabiwe endawoni.
Ge mokgoši o hlabiwa polekeng,
Awuyilapha ukabitwa khona.
a o iko mo o sa bitswang gona.
Dikhalema le makwalo na le maphelelo.
Ke kgalema la mathomo le la mafelo.
Wasekalsprate ka maraba.
Sprite kwa Kalspruit.
Wa ka mashashane.
Mašašane ke mašašane.
A yase ang khona ko yeba muru wa ka mashashane to mtseng
Ha
ngale.
ke kgone go utswa motlho wa mašašane ka moša Kalspruit.
En khalema le.
Re kgala fela moo.
Nje
Jwale,
Toreta sereto sa ka Gwangwa.
ke tlo reta sereto sa ga
Le
Gwangwa.
sereto se le phasile la
Le
sekalsprate.
sereto sela sa Kalspruit.
Kulesi sa ka Gwangwa.
Go le se sa Kalspruit.
Mfuna kurana na bela ngari ta sibala. Anta ngwala ndro phasi saletse ngatsene ndo letse.
A nke ke ngwala selo fase di gona mo mading.
Mara nto susumela kahle gore le sive gore sereto history ka.
Ke tlo se bolela botse gore le sekwe mara ka Setebele gore le se kgone go sekwa.
Mphuthamalanga be change.
Ke a tuka jwale ke tuka mollo.
Lo thobele lo.
wa robetšeng
lo tobele mrona sama bono ga kwang
ke ngwana Somabono wa Gwangwa.
mbo sibongo senginginene sibongo barwaneni sabongo barwaneni siyavuka
Ke sebongo se nkinini kuhle
Okay.
ya no asengitwa
mbo sibongo senginginene sibongo sabongo barwaneni siyavuka muntu wabo ngejana masilasila situkulu samanje ulokho thatha godo miswa ga kwa le bone la boramkoni wa bokosi o le phatha monre khukulo bantu babo patiki wa bomanenga sokgwele se tlarala la semaroko ga matshwana
runga we
e ka bo mmusi o bona mba thutse ba bude ba ya zuzumpela
mamlo
e ka bo sehlathi sokupheka mbhodza emathubhini abo mashawo akulwana e ka bo nasi sigodwana simutsiri magongo udiyempele mbhokatse ubonile khwanile jankgola nemkhule khamba kahle sesokwa bana sesentsima ke ngwana a tlogang ka sprate ka maraba sekwalana ka idule kotlolo boramaga mogara se itshaka ditabu o re duelwa le mang nna ngwana go bokwang ba go šetšatšeng ke a feditše ke lle kgabelele ka dimanantong go šetše kgoši ya mere ba molopo le ngwana ntwaneng ya ka mothiba
athoka we
na le bonenake la bolena le thubegile ke re na le bonenake wa bolena motsogo ga šana ba reng ga ba re phiwetse tlego ga dipatagana mola bona beng ba dimologong re bona ba dipatagana mabotsitse le boelela phaseng la maune ka mo go la matutudi go lewa sa masetlapele sello gobane di ile tlogolwana tsa mara ba sekgonang di ile di bakišana go tloga mongwe a re e sa pele go sepele nna wa rara mongwe a re wa sepela le nna ke tlo go latela a fa le mona ga botse molela mahwita ke ra fa le bona ga botse kgala ka le leso la bobotsikana o rile a re ke lokišetša setšhaba go dula ka kgotso maphatle ba tlhomang ka ga naga le seo ngwana a tebele tona mapankola ngwana modula thoko wa maune re sa tlo reng ba diphethile badimo re sa tlo reng bona beng ba re amogile re be reka mokgobo ya lefiša re lebetse go lebelela sorong ante bona beng badimo re re ba iphethile ba phethile gore ba goroge motseng maswakana mme o kae madimetse kgoša go tla ikirikitletse a tla lamola bana go senya leano ba ka lamola ke manga le goneng ke duamagoro ya mabete bo sele maunauna batho la ngwana na le senyege be matlho le kgotlotše thibang ditšhuba mešo e thunyele ke phiritšere
athoka we